So I would say that at least majority of my audience is familiar with Akira Kurosawa's samurai epic Kagemusha. And I've noticed in recent times that more and more people are starting to really favor that film greatly. I remember years ago, people would complain about it and say it was too long and boring. But I believe now there's a lot more people that have knowledge of Japanese history. And a lot of this has to do with podcasts and even YouTube channels that do a great job at just teaching, Japanese history. And I bring that up because you really have to have some knowledge of Japanese history to be able to really understand and appreciate Kagemusha. Because the film already assumes that you know some of the history of that time period. And in a way, it is a heavy historical drama. But for me, I was always drawn in by its plot and just the incredible visuals. And it may even be Akira Kurosawa's most beautiful film he's ever made. There's just tons of breathtaking shots. And the film really is a great example of being directed by an actual painter. There's plenty of scenes that you could just freeze and just hang it on your wall as art. It really is an incredible looking film. But I will say that the plot itself is also quite fascinating, because it deals with imposter syndrome. But it also has to do with just putting something that's greater than yourself, like one's country or kingdom. And actually recently a friend from my Discord told me that Kagemusha is a remake of an older film. And that older film has the same story essentially. So big shout out to Major Kiyonazuke. And actually I just realized his name and profile picture are from this movie. So I'll say he's definitely a big fan of it. And I can see why, because this really is an impressive hidden gem. And every fan of Kurosawa's Kagemusha should definitely check it out. So the title of this film is The Third Shadow Warrior, 1963. It's also known as Daisan no Kagemusha. And in case you didn't know, Kagemusha means Shadow Warrior. And this film stars the great Raizo Ichikawa. He's just an excellent actor and he's in a ton of samurai films. And in this film he plays the role of a farmer. And one day he gets drafted to become a double of the warlord, who's actually also played by Ichikawa. And at first this job seems like a dream come true. He really went from rags to riches overnight. And he gets everything he could dream of. But soon enough, it becomes something of a horror story. And just like in real life, everything that seems too good often is. So I gotta say, this film really surprised me going in. I mean, I knew it was gonna have the same premise as Kagemusha, and I was pretty much expecting a cheaper, non-Kurosawa version of that story. And when you watch it, you can definitely see that Kurosawa used the same premise. However, he skipped out on the sudden change into a darker tone that this one takes. And some aspects of this film really are a horror movie. And I really just praise this film for just taking it in that direction. I really wasn't expecting it. And without spoiling too much, I'll just say early on in the film, there's a scene where the warlord loses an eye during battle. And so in order to keep up with this charade, now the doubles will have to lose their eye as well. And just a sequence where the three of them realize what's about to happen to them, it really is so suspenseful the way they did it. And they do it too without being graphic. And I thought that direction was just done so well. I really wasn't expecting it, but I really liked it. And it's interesting that Kurosawa chose not to get into the darker aspects that this film goes in. He had a much bigger, grander story in mind. And his film really did focus on the grandness. And it really didn't bring up this interesting scenario that could have taken place. So I really just respect this original film with what it did. But I will say that the limited budget hurts this film, because there is battle sequences but you could tell that they don't have that many extras. So at times you can really tell that they only had like 20 people, so it doesn't really seem like a real battle. Whereas with Kurosawa, he had all these horsemen. I think he broke the record for that, and he just had thousands of extras. So in a way I could see why Kurosawa picked this one up, but demanded such a big budget. And the other flaw I have with this film too is the real downer that it ends on. And that is common for Asian films. After all, Kagemusha too had a downer ending. But it seemed like here that the film sort of lost its momentum. But those two things are really my only complaints about this film. I really believe this is a brilliant film altogether. And again, I thought Raizo was just excellent in this film. Maybe even surpassing Tatsuya Nakadai in some aspects. And I really liked too in this version how Raizo's character just kept getting forced to take on this role, even though at times he really didn't want to. Eventually he sort of just gets stuck with it. And it really just highlighted how sometimes the simple life of a farmer can be better. And also too in this film they have a really nice training scene, and it shows how the doubles are trying to mimic the warlord. It even got down into how he should walk. There's actually almost a Rocky montage sequence of it. There's like even music playing. So I thought this was a really nice scene that Kagemusha should have had. It really showed how difficult it was for these doubles to fit in like this. It really highlighted the role that these doubles had to play. And again, it just unfortunately goes from bad to worse. So if you like Akira Kurosawa's Kagemusha, then you definitely have to check this film out. Obviously though, no other film can match Kurosawa's, in terms of just the grandness and the visual spectacle that it is. Kagemusha really is a one-of-a-kind film. But this film takes that same premise, and it has it in a smaller package, but it does something really creative with it. And I just thought it was brilliant. And again, it just takes it into these really interesting scenarios. So I was just really impressed with what this film did, and again, I highly recommend it for everyone who liked Kagemusha. I also felt like this film was perfectly paced, and not one moment really dragged. And I was watching it, and it almost didn't feel like it was directed by a Japanese director. It almost seemed Western in a way. So I'm definitely curious to check out this guy's other films. So definitely just a unique experience. Anyway, if you're looking to watch this film, as of this recording, there is no physical release anywhere for some reason. And that's pretty terrible. This film really should have tons of releases of it. But there is a way to stream it for free, and I'll provide a link for that in the description. So check it out before it disappears. And, hopefully this film gets more recognition from this video. We'll see. Anyway, if you want to support my channel, I have a Patreon. If you want to discuss films like this, I have a free Discord. Please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, and I'll provide links for everything in the description below. And like always, thanks for watching.